to all.
Tēnā koe te mangai o te whare. I too would like to acknowledge the passing of Martin Crowe, an amazing New Zealander, an incredible sports person and somebody who I think was one of the critical factors in inspiring New Zealand's performance at the World Cup. And so I think we all collectively mourn his passing and pass on our condolences to his whānau. It is my pleasure to speak in this third reading of the Radiation Safety Bill as a previous member of the Health Select Committee. And it has taken, I think we're 51 years from this law reform coming to fruition today as it replaces the Radiation Protection Act of 1965. I do want to state for the record that if we had our way, this would be the ionising radiation safety bill. Because it only applies to ionising radiation and not non-ionising radiation, but that's really all I'll say about that. This law reform actually completes New Zealand's domestic implementation of, firstly, the International Convention for the Suppression of Acts of Nuclear Terrorism. And we actually signed that convention, Mr. Speaker, on the 14th of September 2005. So today we will actually join 101 other nations to now ratify this convention in our domestic legislation. It also completes our commitment to the amendment to the Convention on the Physical Protection of Nuclear Material, which was adopted on the 8th of July 2005. And again, that ensures that our domestic legislation now puts us in that group of countries who have taken the convention seriously, and our domestic legislation now reflects that commitment. So this law reform enables us to meet our international obligations relating to radiation protection, radiation safety and security, and non-nuclear proliferation. So rather than Google about ionising, non-ionising radiation, what I've been doing here, Mr. Speaker, is Googling about the Convention on the Physical Protection of Nuclear Material, which was actually adopted on the 26th of October 1979 in Vienna. And the convention is actually held with the International Atomic Energy Agency, which was established on the 29th of July 1957. And that agency's mandate is to promote peaceful use of nuclear energy to stop the production of nuclear weapons. And I guess I've been trying to look at the interface between the whole nuclear energy focus and the relationship with radiation, which is what this bill is all about. And so nuclear radiation is energy rays given off from a radioactive element such as uranium, which this bill will apply to as it decays. And so the whole reason it all traces back to that particular convention is because I guess there is universal acceptance that radiation causes harm. So in our particular bill, what we've said is that radiation use occurs and should occur only where the expected benefits outweigh the risks, and that exposure must be kept as low as reasonably possible to achieve the results that are wanted, and that the doses must not exceed the limits. And so this piece of legislation really is about the safe use of ionising radiation in New Zealand. And I think we actually have ensured that this is a best practice piece of legislation. And I want to take the time to thank the 14 submitters on this piece of legislation. 3 of them made oral submissions. The Regulations Review Committee also helped clarify the separate roles that codes of practice and regulations will play under this piece of legislation. And I too want to highlight that the codes of practice now written into this legislation will ensure that these are reviewed at least once every 5 years. So we can be reassured that there will be a regular update in terms of the regulations that are relevant to this piece of legislation. I would like to take the opportunity to thank the officials. I think they were incredibly helpful and patient with some of the members of the Select Committee during the passage of this legislation, who were fixated at times on this whole issue of ionising and non-ionising radiation, so that we actually understood the relevance of the focus on ionising radiation, and as I've tried to explain, because of the background and the context, which has been about this focus on nuclear energy, non-proliferation, and actually the protection of the world to the drastic consequences when nuclear energy is used as a weapon of destruction. I would also like to take the time to congratulate the Select Committee always on the way that they work. I think it is the most collaborative Select Committee. I've been on a few, I'm on another one now, but I think there's something really special about the Health Select Committee because of the subject area. Our job is to protect the health and safety of New Zealanders, and I think that as a committee we're all incredibly committed to that task, and so I just want to commend the Select Committee on that work, and as always I'm really willing to take a call on any bills before the Health Select Committee. So just finally, I think, we support this bill. The passage of this bill actually is about time, and so I commend the bill to the House. Kia ora tātou.